Everyone knows I have a passion for knives, and these are some of the knives that I was involved in their production. This was the first knife that myself and Paddy Smith designed and produced. It was made of 127 Scanvac steel and hardened to about 68 HRC. You can see there, it was the very first knife we designed, 001. It's the very first one, and I'm very proud of its design. It has a drop point blade. The handle, took a lot of thought went into the handle. It fits like a glove in your hand, and even for larger hands, it's quite comfortable. And you can see the thickness of the blade, and all Paddy's knives are what's classed as full tang construction. But on my knife, I got the added bonus of Paddy filed and put this design into this knife, just especially for me, as it's 001, the first one off the production. Very, very proud of this knife and the success it had for Paddy, and the way it was received by the general body of hunters. Their reviews on it have been always positive. Some people requiring a handier knife and one with a shorter blade, so we came up with the Pro Stalker Stumpy. It has a slightly thicker blade than that, but it's a really pleasant knife to use. For the general grollock and the bleed, this knife is fine. Might have a little difficulty doing the bung with it, as it's quite a short blade and it wouldn't have such a wide sweep. But its design was simple and it works. And on our smaller deer and smaller animals, this knife is absolutely perfect. You wouldn't need any more. Not saying you wouldn't handle our larger deer species with this knife. Of course you would, because the quality is there. On this knife, we had an orange handle. The idea and concept behind the orange handle was so the knife would be easily spotted on the ground if you left it down. Again, it's a full tang construction knife. Really pretty, really good knife. All my knives have seen use and action, and before they ever went into production, I reviewed them and field tested them. Then we come to our flagship. We wanted a do-all knife, one with a blade design that was different than others. So we came across this and we came up with this design. This is a kind of a do-all knife. It has a kind of a drop point blade, but not quite a drop point, as it sweeps up a little. The idea behind this is this knife will handle everything in the feed, from bleeding to bunging to removing heads, but also has the advantage, because of the design of the blade and the way it sweeps back, it will also aid in the skinning process of deer. The materials used on this knife were the best available to us. We use N690 steel, a very hard steel, and it's a very difficult steel to work on, so Paddy informs me. All Paddy's knives have Paddy's stamp on the blade, and the handle on this knife is carbon fibre. We have a mosaic pin up at the top, which is really strong, and then the pins on this knife, these are stainless steel, but the pins on this knife we went the extra mile and used titanium for strength and lightness. Of course, it has the red liner as well as being functional. It's very eye-pleasing. This is a very eye-pleasing knife with a lot of practical thought gone into it. The sheaths on our first knife, we decided to go with the square. The reason being, if the knife is in the sheath, the top of the knife would be covered by our jacket, and it would be inoffensive to see this sticking out from under your coat, as people would think it's a piece of tool, a tool holder or something like that. So with the first two designs, we went with a square sheet. Now, I want to speak briefly on Paddy's sheets. Again, they're stamped and they use a full one piece of leather with minimum stitching. The stitching only goes up along the side, and then it's doubled there for where the edge will sit in against the leather grain. You can see where the leather comes the whole way around. So it's one piece of leather folded over and done. This adds strength to the sheet and makes it really, and this is the best leather that's available for making sheets. Nothing is spared with the production of these. Oh, you can see here there's still blood and clay on this one. This design had to be this way for, as I call it, our hybrid do-all knife. Skinning, field, small deer, big deer, this knife will do them all. This knife, I could safely say, will do anything from a muntjac to a Cape Buffalo, and it will do it at seas. It's a really good top-end quality knife, and that it fits straight into the leather sheet. So that's an introduction to the 3 of Paddy Smyth's field knives that were specially designed for deer stalking and large game hunting.